Good morning, guys. Everything new under the sun. Economic updates. I want to take a look at a couple of things. One thing to note, however, I was looking through YouTube and the various articles that I go through in the news sources, and I realized that I haven't seen BPEarthwatch in a while, and apparently he's been banned from YouTube. That's significant because BPEarthwatch was, not that I recall, in terms of all the videos that I've listened to him, um, he is not one to say anything too crazy or ridiculous. So I haven't seen why he was banned yet, but I think it's coming for all of us. And of course, they're suggesting that Paul Begley is going to be banned from YouTube next. He's the next one that's going to go. I think this is coming upon all conservative YouTubers, and the big ones are being picked off now. First, you had Alex Jones, and you could say yay or nay in terms of whether he was too much or went too far. But free speech is free speech. Do we believe in free speech? Does that mean everybody can say anything they want at any time, or do you start legislating what people can say, even if you don't like what they say? But you had Alex Jones first. Now you're having some other conservative commentators being shut down. Stefan Molyneux, he was shut down in Australia, New Zealand, and I'm sure he is one conservative-ish commentator to be next banned from YouTube. Now, like I say, we see a BPEarthwatch. His main channel is apparently banned, and I haven't seen all the details about it. But folks, if you're conservative, if you're a Christian, even if you're not a Christian, but on the conservative side, the government and big corporations are going to start coming for you. They're going to start banning you because they don't like what you're saying, whether or not what you're saying is true or not, etc. They're going to call it hate speech, or they're going to give some excuse for shutting you down if it doesn't toe the party line, if it doesn't go along with what the government wants the people, the masses, to believe, to understand, to know. They're going to call it fake news, and that's what's happening. And so interesting about BPEarthwatch. All right, CNBC markets were down 800 yesterday. This one article says the sell-off was caused by a computer-driven foot race. Now, many have warned that the computers will ultimately cause the next economic collapse, whether it be from a bug or simply all the computers doing what they were programmed to do, trying to sell. And if there's a foot race for a bottom, it's going to trigger all the sell signals for all the computer programs that and the algorithms that basically run and rule the markets these days. And many suggest the computers, the algorithms, are what is going to cause the next economic collapse, and it's going to cause all the triggers to be met and economic collapse. And I think that's very likely. If that's true, that a computer-driven foot race occurred, I don't see why we won't see that a lot more often. There's no real incentive for them to tell an algorithm to stop a foot race at any time, because ultimately each individual algorithm is made for a purpose, and it's to beat the next algorithm at its own game, and to make more money, or to lose as least money as possible. So a march to the bottom seems inevitable for me at some point. Now, the whole situation was also blamed on the whole Trump situation with China, some truce deal that they agreed to. So there's a lot of articles on CNBC about that. Now, Dow futures rather is up 94 points right now. I expect that will go down, although the mainstream media is saying, oh, it's going to bounce back today. But I suspect it's going to go down a bit more. We'll see how that goes. This is a Zero Hedge article. China dismisses confusion claims, says will quickly implement trade agreement with U.S. Chinese officials are puzzled and irritated by Trump's administration's behavior, and widespread confusion across media claiming the truce as a nothing burger. China's Ministry of Finance has denied any confusion or negativity exists. Trump basically is coming out and saying a bunch of stuff, and I guess China doesn't like that. China says trade meeting with the U.S. is very successful and confident to implement the results agreed to at the talks. So that's the situation with China. Here's another article. U.S. Treasury sanctions Bitcoin wallets for first time. I think this is, well, I don't know if it's the first nail in the coffin, but I think it's a nail in the coffin. And I think I'm starting to believe people like Jim Rogers, who said, you know what, Bitcoin is great. but it's never going to survive. It's going to go to zero. Why? Because governments are the ones with guns, and they're going to start implementing regulations against this. They do not want a freely traded currency, which cryptocurrencies basically are right now. They're not going to allow it because they don't want cryptocurrencies to overtake the fiat currencies, the national sovereign fiat currencies, like the US dollar. So governments are going to put in place taxes and controls on cryptocurrencies, so much so that I think it's going to really limit their growth. And indeed, look at this one. Last week, U.S. Treasury Department of Foreign Assets Control targeted 2 Bitcoin addresses, announcing that the wallets associated to Iranian citizens, Ali and Mohammed, I'll just say their first names, have been added to the specially designated national sanctions list. So the government is sanctioning Bitcoin wallets, and I think ultimately, I mean, this is the thin edge of the wedge. This is going to come to all Bitcoin wallets if the U.S. government decides that Bitcoin is impeding, getting in the way of the success of the U.S. dollar as the current world reserve currency. I see no reason to believe that they would stop at just Iranian Bitcoin wallets if Bitcoin cryptocurrency started threatening the sovereignty, the money making that the Federal Reserve was doing, and the government control that they want to have. If it starts getting around that, they're just going to start slapping it with sanctions. And who's going to then buy cryptocurrencies if the government, with all its guns and weapons, starts making laws against it? The regular person is going to say, this is not worth the effort. I'm just going to stick with the U.S. dollar and keep going down that path. Similar things happen to gold and silver. When gold and silver were taking off, they started putting restrictions on it. They confiscated gold and silver to bring in, to get rid of the gold standard, and basically they outlawed gold and silver in many countries because gold and silver could be used as another currency, and of course the government wants to control that. They don't want another currency competing with the sovereign fiat currency, so they either outlaw it or they give you money, they buy it back from the citizens, or they put in a law to force you to give it up. So these things are coming, and I think cryptocurrency is going to zero. All fake fiat currencies go to zero at some point in time, but likely the fiat currency of the U.S. government is going to beat out the fiat currency of cryptocurrencies simply because the government is able to implement regulations against it. So this is a nail in the coffin for cryptocurrencies. I don't even believe gold and silver will ultimately save us because the Bible speaks of a time when gold and silver are thrown into the streets. You can't eat them. People are going to be suffering under the wrath of God. There's going to be no food. You can't eat gold and silver. You can barter it for a while, but once food runs out or gets so low, people aren't going to be willing to trade food for gold and silver anymore because it's not going to help anymore. So there will come a time when gold and silver become worthless, and indeed, in a sort of a way, in heaven, the streets are paved with gold, and that tells you the value of it in a way. In God's eyes, it's worth only enough to pave the streets. We'll be walking on golden streets in heaven. So ultimately, the only insurance you can have, the only true everlasting insurance you can have is in Jesus Christ, and salvation through Jesus, who died on the cross for our sins 2,000 years ago. Everything else is going to burn up. Gold and silver, food, cryptocurrencies, the computers that keep the cryptocurrencies going, they're going to all burn away and be destroyed. So ultimately, the most important thing until the Lord returns is to have food, water, shelter, and some hard assets. And these things will get you through at least a bunch of these last days. Outside of that, you can't be sure. There may be a time when cryptocurrency is a short period where they're very valuable, and if you pull out at the right time, then you could make a lot of money. But ultimately, it's all going to go to zero. And you can't eat cryptocurrencies. You can't eat gold and silver. So that's kind of the argument for simply being prepared otherwise. But I think this is going to come to all cryptocurrencies, government regulation, and I think maybe the heyday of them was last year. Maybe that was it. I kind of think there's going to be another spike in it, but maybe a spike just before an economic collapse. It seems like cryptocurrencies go up and down with the markets, which doesn't bode well for me. That means it's not freely traded, because if the market went down, you'd think people would be going into a safe haven of cryptocurrencies, and we don't see that. We really only see them going up and down with the stock market, which means they're not a safe haven like gold and silver. Gold and silver are suppressed assets, yet they still do climb up a little bit when the markets go down as a safe haven. It's been a safe haven for all the history of man. So these are the things that I see happening. Some interesting things in the markets. I'm going to keep this one quick. I'm not going to go long. This BPEarthwatch thing, I'm looking into it. I'm not sure. Maybe you have information you can put in the comments below as to what's going on with BPEarthwatch. I'm gonna look into it today and see what I can find. But it's scary for anybody who is attempting to reveal truth, or even just attempting to exercise free speech for that matter. And they're being banned, and Google can do whatever they want. YouTube can do whatever they want. They're publicly traded organizations, or they're not government run, at least at this point, and they can really do whatever they want. They can control free speech. They can limit free speech if they want. They're not required to uphold free speech, but it's scary once these big organizations do, because how many people rely on them, and how many people won't move anywhere else or won't look anywhere else for true news. They won't go to websites like michaelgallant.com to look for alternative news media, because they're looking for it on YouTube, or Facebook for that matter. So when these conservative voices are silenced, you end up no longer seeing these, and all of a sudden you're missing out on a lot of news that you would otherwise be getting if they simply allowed free speech. And there's a part of me that says, yeah, it makes sense to get rid of some hate speech. On the other hand, where's the line between free speech and hate speech, and when do you start drawing that? And it's a hard question for sure, and I think these liberal organizations are on the leading edge of kind of getting rid of any speech that the general public doesn't finds unsavory. But the situation with BPEarthwatch is interesting, and I'll have to find out what's going on there. So thanks for watching, guys. A bit of a Wednesday update for you. Check out the last video I did, the alert on the economy. It's significant. There's some big players who are calling for some big trouble. You need to be prepared economically, spiritually, have your hard assets set up, and your food and water, and be prepared. The Bible says there's going to be some hard times coming, and we are heading into them fast and furious. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. If you'd like to support, go to michaelgallant.com, and you can hit the support link and see how you can support me, especially on Patreon. If you'd like to support, I've got a few patrons now, so thanks for all those people supporting the channel. And you can support it just by sharing the video as well. Alright, we'll see you guys in the next video.